Hello everyone and welcome to the L.T.L Tutoring Central video channel, and this week I'm talking about how can I help my child succeed note-taking. So we've been having a little series of videos about how to help your child succeed. We started with the learning space. Last week I talked about using an agenda or a student planner, and this week I'm talking about taking notes. And yes, taking notes is still an important part of learning, of retaining information, of studying. Even today, with all the technology that we have, note-taking remains one of the best methods you can use to prepare yourself for tests and quizzes and exams, but more importantly, to help you remember the information. It's important to know what you're learning. What's the point of learning if you don't remember anything, or if you're not able to use that information in a new way? Then you really haven't learned anything. You don't have an education, in my opinion. Now, there are students who don't like note-taking. It's tedious. It takes a long time sometimes. You know, you have to work. So they don't really love the idea of taking notes and think it's a waste of time, just as they do with the agenda or student planner. But as I mentioned before, doing the legwork can really help you excel later on. It will save you time in the long run. You won't have to keep redoing things if you do it properly in the first place, and it will raise your grades or your scores. And more importantly, in my opinion, you will learn more. You will get more out of the courses. Remember, it's your education. And if you're a parent, it's your child's education. So you want the best for him or her. So taking notes is one of the methods to get there. And by taking notes, I generally mean writing them down with a pencil or a pen on a piece of paper, a notebook, a paper in a binder, the old-fashioned way before the internet. And yes, there was a time before the internet. I recall vividly looking out my window and seeing a Tyrannosaurus Rex in my garden. Oh, okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit. You can Google that. I'm not quite that old. And that's the point. There are students and there are even teachers, I'm a bit ashamed to say, who believe that because you can Google it, you don't need to learn anything. They think learning is Googling. That's not learning. That's like me saying, the information's in the book. Why do I need to learn it? Or, that guy knows the information. Why do I need to learn anything? I'll just ask him. Well, that's ridiculous. In the past, no one would have thought that you could just say, well, it's in the book. Well, it's the same idea. I can Google it. Well, of course you can Google it. I Google things all the time. That's a good tool to retrieve information or to do some research, just as books are a great tool for doing research and finding information. But then you need to do something with that information. In some cases, you need to memorize it or you need to learn it. In a lot of cases, particularly as you get into the older grades, you need to manipulate it in some way. You need to use it. You need to prove your thesis in an essay, or you need to put various pieces from all different bits of information together. So you need to do something with it. It's not a matter of just being able to Google it and there it is. Of course, there it is. It doesn't do you any good. You need to take notes from lectures in class. When you're reading your textbook, including your math book, taking notes is a great idea. Take notes from movies, from podcasts, from videos. Take notes from novels you're reading. Take notes from short stories. And despite the fact that you think, oh, that's a waste of time reading a novel, why would I take notes? Well, if in chapter 7, that's when the fire happened, all you have to do is take a brief note, and then when you're writing your essay, it's much quicker to find quotations, it's much quicker to find the information you need, and it will also give you a series of events and also some characters that you can review before a final exam, for example, and you can be prepared. So it really can be helpful. A lot of teachers give lists of questions or chapter questions, and you answer those chapter questions. Why do they do that? Because they know the students are not going to take notes. So those end up being your notes. And they may suffice. They may do well enough by themselves, but you may want to take notes separately. And if the teacher isn't giving chapter questions, you may want to take notes for yourself. So that is just an example of one area of taking notes, but remember I mentioned at all times you should be taking notes. Your notes don't have to be perfect. Your notes don't have to be awesome. As long as you can read them, and as long as you can read them weeks or months from now, that's also important. So if you're using abbreviations or short forms, make sure you'll remember them or make a little note in the front of your book so that you can access those, because later when you review your notes, you have to understand them. That's very important. Watch some of the other videos or read some of the other blogs, particularly the Reading for Comprehension one, which talks about using the SQ3R method for reading and taking notes, because using a method can be very helpful, and it can help you shorten the time it takes you to do the notes and make it easier for you to retain the information as well. You can also look around. You'll find all different methods for taking notes, and then you can adjust them to suit what works for you. I had my own method. I looked at others and I kind of used pieces of them, but I developed my own method for taking notes, which looked a bit bizarre, but they worked for me, and I took a lot of notes when I was in school, and I can still look back at my old notes and read them and understand them as long as I remember the course to some extent. So my notes make sense though, and I can still read them. Some of them are 30 years old and I can still read them. So make sure you take them so you can understand them. Doesn't matter if anyone else can, but you have to be able to understand them for at least a relatively long period of time, so you can prepare for tests and exams that might come at the end of the year or the end of the semester. Don't be afraid to do this legwork, to do this preliminary work. It's very, very important, and it will really help you. And what you want is to get as much information as you can this year, because then next year you'll have all that information to take along with you, and you build this network of knowledge. Remember, I'm always talking about this network, and that's what's important. Bits of information that you can find on Google or even in books. That's great, but it doesn't do anything just sitting there by itself. You need to be able to do something with it. You need to be able to understand it, comprehend it, be able to use it in a new way. And that's how taking notes can help. And writing them out, the kinesthetic motion of writing them seems to wire the brain differently, and it helps students to retain the information. In part, it's because you're spending more time with the data, with the information, but also there does seem to be a connection between the physical movement of the pencil or pen that doesn't exist with typing. So write at least some of your notes out longhand, I would recommend. You can type notes. You can use programs online like Evernote or OneNote, and they're great tools, but remember, they're only tools. The problem I find with those, and even with Google Drive, is that students will often copy and paste or import documents into their OneNote or into their Evernote or into their Google Drive, and they'll have all this information there, but they don't know what any of this information is. They've read the titles, they may have read a little bit of the article, or they've seen pictures and they just pop that whole article over, but they don't know what's in there. You need to read the documents. Before you import them or copy and paste them, you need to read the document and see, is this an important document? Is this going to be useful for what I need? So you need to make a few executive decisions before, and then you need to do something with that material after. You can either take hand notes from them. You don't copy the whole thing. You look at the information and you summarize it, or you synthesize it in some way. And writing this out will help you, because now you've written the information in your own words. So when it comes test time and they ask you for short answers or paragraph answers or even an essay answer, you've already practiced writing this information in your own words. I can't tell you how many times a student has sat right here behind me and said, I knew the information, or I know the information, but I don't know how to say it, and I don't know how to write it. Well, if you don't know how to say it, and you don't know how to write it, then you don't know the information. Sorry, it's a little brutal, but the truth is, if you don't know how to say it or write it, especially, you really don't know it. It's like saying I read something once, so I must know it. Well, not necessarily. If you don't recall it, you don't remember it, and you can't access it, you're going to have to find that information again. Now, you may remember it more quickly the second time around, but if you're not able to express it in some way now, you don't know it. So that's the important piece, and that's when you're self-testing and you're practicing. Writing things down can be very helpful because then you've already practiced putting it in your own words. So you're ready to go. And you know how much importance I put on self-testing and practice. So as I said, look in this channel for some more videos. I'm sure there's lots of videos online too about study skills and tips, but look for information about note-taking. Check out the blog as well. And this little video series I've been doing recently is all about how to help your child succeed, but in fact, they're tips that you can use for yourself as well if you're watching as an adult. So anyone can take notes. I take notes all the time. It's very important for me in my teaching career, but also I'm a learner, because if you're a teacher, you should always be a student for life. I want you to enjoy learning. I want you to enjoy taking notes, because remember, it's not the notes that are so important, it's the knowledge. And as you learn to put the pieces together, you will find that it is quite motivating, and it makes you feel good when you accomplish something, when you understand, wait a minute, this reminds me of something that historian said, or this reminds me of that novel I read. You start making those connections, you feel much more intelligent, you feel smarter, and you feel better about yourself because you realize, I'm really learning something here. I'm not just memorizing something, I'm actually learning something that I can share, that I can give to others. And that is so important. Have fun learning. Check out the blog. I'll put a link below. I'll put a link below for the website as well. If you need more tips or you would like a personalized program for math, reading, writing, study skills and strategies, get in touch with me either on the video. You can make a comment, ask a question, or of course you can email me. Check out the website for the email address. Like the channel or like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want. That would be great. And get in touch. I love to hear what other people are doing to help themselves and to help their children succeed in school, or in any other way for that matter. It's Ron Johnson from L.T.L. Tutoring Central, signing off for now. Until next week, have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.